Hello and good evening. You are watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime. It is a Friday, so here's to hoping that you did have a productive week. My name is Faith Nyaude. A quick look at stories making headlines tonight. President Mnangagwa concluded a fruitful visit to China where he met his counterpart Xi Jinping. We have our group political editor Rangamatere on standby to help us unpack some of the immediate positives derived from the president's visit. Public hearings for the Zimbabwe Examination Council Amendment Bill public concluded in Harare today, with some stakeholders calling for stiffer penalties for exam cheats. We have that story coming up later in the bulletin. The African Union has commended Zimbabwe's commitment to enhancing youth and women's representation in leadership roles and economic inclusion, as espoused under its National Development Plan and also in sync with AU's Continental Development Strategy under Agenda 2063. Stay tuned for more details on Newsplus. And in sport, the Zimbabwe Warriors fell 1-0 to Benin in a World Cup qualifier. Our main story tonight, President Emmerson Mnangagwa has concluded a landmark visit to China where he met President Xi Jinping and joined world leaders at the 80th Victory Day celebrations. Now, the visit saw Zimbabwe and China agreeing to upgrade their relations to an all-weather community with a shared future, a move expected to deepen political, economic, and technological cooperation.
The head of state and government concluded his visit to China, bringing to an end a landmark trip that reinforced Zimbabwe's foremost bilateral partnership, deepened political and economic cooperation, and paved the way for expanded collaboration in infrastructure, trade, and technology. During the visit, President Mnangagwa met with his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping, at the Great Hall of the People. The two leaders announced the elevation of ties to an all-weather Zimbabwe-China community with a shared future marking 45 years of diplomatic relations between the two nations.
Your Excellency, it has been 45 years since the establishment of Zimbabwe-China diplomatic ties. These excellent relations have stood the test of time and continue to grow from strength to strength. Our friendship and partnership is matured. Zimbabwe therefore welcomes the deepening and elevation of our relations from the previous comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation to an accord all-weather Zimbabwe-China community with a shared future, end of quote.
For President Xi, the relationship goes beyond diplomacy.
捍卫国际公平正义，推动国际秩序朝着更加公正合理的方向发展。今年是中金建交45周年，中金5星铁杆友谊持续深化。我建议将双边关系提升为中金全天候命运共同体。 为中国、非洲乃至全球南方团结协作。
He described the partnership as a five-star ironclad friendship and pledged stronger support for Zimbabwe in development, investment, and the fight against sanctions. President Mnangagwa also joined 26 world leaders at Tiananmen Square for China's 80th Victory Day parade. The commemorations blended solemn remembrance with a display of military strength, helicopters carving an 80 in the skies, while tanks and missile systems rolled past in precise formation. Speaking on the sidelines of the commemorations, President Mnangagwa paid tribute to China's historic sacrifices during the Second World War, describing the resilience of the Chinese people as an inspiration.
These relations show that we have a cherished relationship which for some of you who are young We were trained here. We were 5. I don't know whether, I think I'm the only survivor. We were 5 in 1965.
For Zimbabwe, the alliance is more than history. China has grown into Zimbabwe's third biggest trading partner, with bilateral trade topping $3.8 billion. The president held talks with China Railway International Group on a $600 million project to revive Zimbabwe's railways, once the backbone of the economy.
We can lower the cost of doing business and we become a truly logistics hub in the region. This is the top management of China Rail. It's a Fortune 500 company. It listed on 2 stock exchanges here in China. So it's a top drawer company, and we met the top management, and they're very serious about Zimbabwe.
The president also met Huawei Technologies, which committed to deepening Zimbabwe's digital transformation.
Huawei has been running those ICT talents programs for quite years, and we will continue and also to expand the investment on the ICT talents.
Huawei pledged support in AI adoption across agriculture, health and industry, while also training Zimbabwean youth to strengthen local skills. Foreign Affairs Minister Professor Amon Murwira said the upgraded ties are not only a diplomatic milestone, but also a catalyst for fresh investment opportunities that will support Zimbabwe's modernization drive.
Chinese investment or work between Zimbabwe and China is one of the largest in terms of its contribution to GDP. We are talking about Dinson Steel at Manise. It's one of the multi-billion investments.
The president's visit to China cements Harare's strategic partnership with Beijing, an alliance that continues to deliver on trade, infrastructure and technology, even as it draws strength from a shared history.
Now, further looking at the just concluded visit, we now cross over to Ranga Mataile, the Zim Papers Group political editor, to analyze how important these meetings are to Zimbabwe. Ranga, good evening and thank you so much for your time. Now, Zimbabwe and China agreed to upgrade relations to an all-weather community with a shared future. What does this mean in the context of the already existing historical close ties that exist between the two countries?
Thank you for that question. I think from this visit we can see that there is an evolution rather, or an elevation of the diplomatic engagements between Zimbabwe and China, which is akin to the relationship or bilateral relationship between between China and Russia. What this entails is that we have a marked difference in terms of approach. If you compare with the First Republic, which was mainly about geopolitical advocacy in support of the land reform, and also in support of what Zimbabwe was trying to do at that time, given the fact that we were implementing a very revolutionary process which led to Zimbabwe's ostracization and malignment. But now, if you look at the Second Republic, you realize that this is more about striking business deals, economic business deals that have an impact in terms of economic transformation. So I think this augurs well for Zimbabwe in terms of where it's going. China has been Zimbabwe's all-weather friend. We are now moving from just mere geopolitical advocacy to ensuring that we have concrete deals that mutually benefit the two countries. So more than just a pageantry in terms of the president attending the military parade in China, what then came out of it can only be described as very positive in terms of what then came out. You are aware that there were so many deals that were signed, but fundamentally they had to do with infrastructure and also revitalizing our railway system.
Now, Ranga, would you then describe the president's visit to China as a success?
Oh yes, without doubt. I think this visit was very successful in a number of ways. It was very successful because we managed to, Zimbabwe per se, managed to elevate the engagement to issues that are to do with mutual economic benefits. We talk about the issue that I've mentioned before, the revitalization of railways, but we also talk about what China promised in terms of funding for HIV. As you are aware, a lot of funding was withdrawn following the decision taken by the United States administration. So China's support in terms of providing the much needed, medical supplies is very critical for Zimbabwe. China was also at hand, if you remember, during the COVID pandemic. China was the first country to provide the much needed, vaccines. So this has been a transitioning of the relationship, the concretization of the relationship from the time when Zimbabwe was fighting for its own independence, which culminated in 1980 independence, where China supported Zimbabwe both materially and in terms of training. So in terms of being success, yes, I think the visit was very successful given what the president then managed to do with his team in terms of focusing on infrastructure.
Now, Ranga, Zimbabwe is pursuing a development agenda. What lessons then can Zimbabwe draw from China's development journey?
I think basically there could be two lessons that can be drawn from China's experience. One, infrastructure is very critical in whatever economic activity that any country would want to endeavor. Two, I think there is an issue of resource mobilization, resource utilization. China depends entirely on its own people. It has developed its own people to be able to contribute towards economic development. We have the much needed personnel, we have the much needed resources in terms of mineral. So I think what we need to do is to utilize. China is also a policy of cadre deployment, but this cadre deployment is not just about anyone. The people who have the expertise are put in critical positions that would catapult the economy. So I think there are lots of lessons that we can learn from China. What is gratifying is that already Zimbabwe and China have lots of exchanges that they do besides this high level engagement. There are lots of exchanges that they do at government to government, ministry to ministry, and even from party to party. As you're aware, the president was also, welcomed and hosted by the Communist Party of China. So there is a lot of engagement throughout the year where the two parties engage and share experiences. So there are lots of lessons that Zimbabwe can derive from China. And I think we have implemented some of the lessons because China was our friend when we were fighting for the liberation of this country.
Ranga, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us those insights. That's Ranga Mataire, the Group Political Editor for Zim Papers, just giving us an overview of the president's visit as he concluded it. Now, our correspondent, Eben Mabunda, now joins us with an overview of trade volumes that exist between Zimbabwe and China. Eben, good evening and over to you.
Good evening. Now, China is one of the top 3 trading partners for Zimbabwe, with very strong indications of the fortification of the trade relations between Zimbabwe and China. Now, let's take a look at some of the key statistics that would be of note. From a low of about $1 billion in 2020, you'd find that the trade stats for 2021 came through at $1.8 billion, jumping by 29% to 2.43 billion United States dollars in the succeeding year, moving up 30% to $3.1 billion. And in 2024, the figure came up to 3.8 billion US dollars, having increased by 23%, of course, from the 2023 figure. And there are indications of further fortification where the bilateral trade between of course, China as well as Zimbabwe. Now, we take a look at Zimbabwe's imports from China, a figure of $2.4 billion there in 2024, of course, against a low of $0.5 billion in 2020. And big question is, what is it that's making up these particular figures? You're looking at machinery, you're looking at vehicles that are coming through from China. You're also looking at technological infrastructure and some of the key industrial fuels at that. And now perhaps looking then at the flip side of things, just to understand what it is that Zimbabwe is exporting to China. You're looking at tobacco, semi-manufactured gold. You're also looking at nickel. Zimbabwe is the world's 6th largest, of course, tobacco producer, and a large foreign currency earner for Zimbabwe, raking in an average of $1 billion per annum. And China is one of the key markets there for Zimbabwe, framing that particular aggregate. Now we look at some of the key projects that are being undertaken by China in Zimbabwe. Of course, you're looking at the Dinson Iron and Steel, the DISCO project. You're also looking at several investments where lithium is concerned with Zhejiang as well as Sinomine. Now, between Dinson and lithium, you'd find that there's been an inflow of over $2 billion over the past 3 years, with indications of that actually being amplified. You also look at infrastructure projects where it is that China has been involved in several infrastructure projects, including Zimbabwe's parliament, not forgetting the Hwange 7 and 8 units where China was actively involved, among several other projects that China has been, of course, undertaking in Zimbabwe, with indications of the further fortification of the bilateral trade between China and Zimbabwe.
Eben, well explained. Thank you so much for those insights. Now, while we're still focusing on the trade relations between Zimbabwe and China, the president's visit to China saw the country entering a landmark agreement to start exporting blueberries to the Asian giant. Now, the deal is a sign that Zimbabwe's blueberries are not just a fruit anymore. They are fast becoming a symbol of what the country's agriculture can achieve when global markets open up their doors. Our business reporter, Melissa Chatkobo, gives us more.
Already, Zimbabwe has shown remarkable growth in the berry industry. Just 5 years ago, blueberries brought in about $11 million US in export earnings. Last year, the figure climbed to over $56 million, supported by rising production volumes. An MOU between Beijing and Harare magnifies this growth. Now, China is also the world's largest producer and exporter of blueberries. So why would they clinch a deal with Zimbabwe? Zimtrade Export Development Manager Tatenda Marume says Zimbabwe produces blueberries exactly when China's own harvest is off season.
It's one sector that still has room to grow even further. And if you look at our own production back here in Zimbabwe, we enjoy special supply windows into the key markets. And these are periods within the year where we are one of the few, producing countries in the world.
So while the signing of a protocol might seem like a small step on paper, on the ground it represents something much bigger. The Horticulture Development Council says it opens the doors for local growers to expand into one of the world's fastest growing blueberry markets.
Our goal has always been to open new markets, and China is one of the world's largest fruit markets. Access for Zimbabwean blueberries creates new opportunities for our farmers. It reaffirms Zimbabwe's position as a serious player in the global berry export.
Zimbabwe blueberry production is projected to increase by 50% to reach 12,000 tons in 2025. With growing interest and positive developments happening, it may attract massive investments.
Zimbabwe already has a good reputation. We have the experience in terms of producing and exporting blueberries. And perhaps what we need to do next is to make sure that we attract investment into the blueberry sector so that we grow, our production to a stage where we are exporting significant volumes into the Chinese market.
For now, Zimbabwe focuses on scaling up its production to meet new markets' demand.
in the future we can do that, and hopefully that's very imminent. But we don't have nearly enough berries or supply to take up what they want. So we're going to need to make sure that we expand quickly, and that comes with its challenges as well, insofar as finance and government policy is concerned. But definitely, when anyone's setting up a business, they're worried about where's the market, where am I going to sell my product. If China come on board, we don't have to worry about that.
For farmers, it's an opportunity to grow their business and earn in hard currency. For the economy, it's a chance to diversify exports beyond traditional commodities like tobacco and gold. And for Zimbabwe as a nation, it's proof that with the right strategies, even niche crops carry weight on global stage. Reporting for ZTM Prime, I am Melissa Chatkubo in Harare.
Now, meanwhile, President Mnangagwa has arrived in the Kingdom of Eswatini, where he is expected to attend that country's National Day celebrations on Saturday. The president was received at the King Mswati III International Airport by Zimbabwe's ambassador to Eswatini, Ambassador Victor Matimadanda, and Eswatini Prime Minister Russell Dlamini. The National Day celebrations, marking the country's 50 years of independence, will be held at Somohlo National Stadium. President Mnangagwa is also expected to attend the ongoing Eswatini International Trade Fair, which coincides with the National Day celebrations. Now, the president is expected to tour stands at the trade fair before the official opening. He is accompanied by Foreign Affairs and International Trade Minister, Professor Eamon Murera, and Deputy Chief Secretary in the Office of the President and Cabinet, George Charamba, and several senior government officials. Now, calls for harsher penalties for exam cheats. We give you those details when Newsplus comes back.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Welcome back. You are still watching Newsplus. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, the African Union has commended Zimbabwe's commitment to enhancing youth and women's representation in leadership roles and economic inclusion, as espoused under its National Development Plan and also in sync with the AU's Continental Development Strategy under Agenda 2063. Chidom Pemba, the newly appointed special advisor to AU chairperson Mahmoud Yusuf, paid a courtesy call on acting president Dr. Constantino Chiwenga, whereupon she indulged in Zimbabwe's strides in the areas of youth and women empowerment. The AU Chair's special advisor is in Zimbabwe for the 7th intergenerational retreat of the African Women Leaders Network. This is an event that will gather over 300 women leaders from across the continent and is going to be held in Harare.
And this event is hosting over 300 women that are coming from across Africa. Some of them are former head of state, some of them are former ministers, and this opportunity is for us to dialogue with the younger women for an intergenerational retreat. And our conversation focused on that importance, the importance of empowering the girl child, including in Zimbabwe. I myself, I'm a product of Zimbabwe in as much as I'm working on the continental level, and it was so encouraging just to see, the commitments of our government to ensure that we have more youth representation and young women representation, not only in leadership positions, but getting opportunities for empowerment.
Now let's turn our focus to education. Calls are growing for tougher penalties against those behind ZIMSEC examination leakages, which have rocked the public examination system in recent years, eroding confidence in its integrity. Now, the demand came during a public hearing to the ZIMSEC Amendment Bill, which actually seeks to update the legislation that was enacted in the year 1994. The new changes also intend to tighten controls on leakages, curb registration irregularities and other fraudulent practices. Our correspondent Sharon Minjanjima has more details.
At today's public hearing of the ZIMSEC Amendment Bill, representatives from private colleges raised concerns about disparities in examination fees. While the structure is uniform, the strain is not. Government, local authority and mission schools pay $11 United States per subject at ordinary level, with the government adding a $13 subsidy. Students at private schools pay the full amount of $24. The same disparities are also at advanced level examinations. Participants argued that these differences highlight broader inequalities in the exam system and should be done away with. Some of the issues raised in the hearings focused on exam leakages. The amendment bill proposes to criminalize the leaking of exam papers with penalties of up to 2 years in jail or a fine. But some participants say the punishment should be tougher and go up to 5 years.
My schools anonga chikora mutemo yeZIMSEC panyaya yekulikisa ma-examinations ngapiwe mutongo wakati kurei pasina provision yefine ngavangopinzwa mujeri pasina provision yekuti vanonzi vanobhadhara fine. Amendment yandaona ndaona kuti pane yanzi 2 years 2 years dzishoma tikuda 5 years chikwira.
Other contributions touched on use of artificial intelligence. Some participants urged ZIMSEC to embrace artificial intelligence as part of modern learning, but stressed the need to regulate its use.
As a country, tisarambe kuti vana vashandise AI. Vana ngavashandise AI because that's the future in nyika dzese. And it asi ngavasayishandisa muma exams. Just like we've got my exams and a maths manganonzi usapinde ne calculator.
Opinions also varied on a proposal to create a chief executive officer post at ZIMSEC. Some saw it as an unnecessary expense that would ultimately fall on ordinary people, while others argued it could help improve efficiency in the exam body's operations.
If ZIMSEC is going to have a CEO that is going to be actually very important in terms of decision making, they will have someone who is responsible for strategy and for transforming that organization.
Speaking to journalists after the meeting, Parliamentary Portfolio Committee Chairperson Superman Wanzira said the priority is to strengthen ZIMSEC and position it as a competitive regional examination body.
And of course, the intention is obviously to strengthen the administration, to strengthen the governance of ZIMSEC, to make sure that it is a credible, a well-respected examination board. We have a great foundation to create an examination board that can be a global examination board, the same way that other examination boards that have existed and continue to exist in our country.
This was the final stop in a nationwide series of public hearings on the ZIMSEC Amendment Bill. The bill will be debated in Parliament soon, and more changes will be made. Sharon Minjanjima for ZTN News in Harare.
Still on Newsplus, the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace in Harare, which is aimed at bolstering administrative justice and promoting the rights of all citizens. Speaking during the signing ceremony, the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, Fungai Majome, said the partnership is a key step in promoting awareness on human rights and ensuring that the two organizations partner to investigate and research on human rights violations in the country.
And I want to believe that our meeting today to sign in a memorandum of understanding is very timely because it is coming just a few months. I think it's now maybe 9 months. 9 months exactly since the leadership of Zimbabwe agreed, and the government agreed to abolish the death penalty and remove that darkness from our law, our statute books. That shows that the light that was being shown by the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace has been finally seen and embraced in our governance, in our halls of power. This is the time, especially. I think it's a moment to celebrate the abolition of the death penalty again and continue to work for the dignity and the freedom and the equality of all human beings.
The Secretary General of the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace, Father Travis Moyo, said that the memorandum is guided by their shared values of promoting human dignity and ensuring that humans flourish in every aspect of their lives. He said that the organization is at the forefront of advocating for the rights of the marginalized through documenting human rights violations, promoting peace-building initiatives, and empowering individuals through education and advocacy.
The signing of this Memorandum of Understanding between the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace in Zimbabwe and the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission is a testament of our shared commitment to upholding the dignity of every human person. Our two institutions are closely linked by their quest to see people live in a just and free society. This partnership therefore comes not as a surprise. Whereas the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission nurtures the promotion, protection, and enforcement of human rights and administrative justice in Zimbabwe, the Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace in Zimbabwe is the Catholic Church's arm for social concerns, drawing inspiration from the sacred scriptures and the social teachings of the Church. The Commission champions the truth about each individual person. It proclaims the dignity of every human person.
You are watching Newsplus. We'll be back shortly after this. Now we come back with some tourism news. The road to the Sanganai Hlanganani Kumbanai Tourism Expo has begun, not with conference halls or red carpets, but with gloves, brooms and a spirited cleanup campaign. Tourism and Hospitality Industry Minister Barbara Rhodzi this Friday led a vibrant community cleanup exercise at Woka near the Trabablas interchange, rallying stakeholders in a symbolic gesture of national pride ahead of next week's tourism showcase that is happening in Mutare. More in this report.
With just days before the much anticipated Sanganai Hlanganani Kumbanai Tourism Expo, the Minister of Tourism has rolled up its sleeves, quite literally.
With gloves on, brooms and spirits high, the road to a cleaner Zimbabwe begins here in Woka, near the bustling Trabablas interchange. The cleanup campaign was led by Tourism and Hospitality Industry Minister Barbara Rhodzi to mark a step towards a clean environment, which is critical to the tourism sector. This bold initiative comes just days before the highly anticipated Sanganai Hlanganani Kumbanai Tourism Expo, set to take center stage in Mutare from the 10th to the 12th of September. It's more than just a calendar event. It's a brand statement, and that brand is Zimbabwe. Joining hands in the campaign were students from Harare Polytechnic College, police, the Environmental Management Agency, and other government parastatals. A united front, all working towards one goal: keeping Zimbabwe clean, green, and globally attractive.
It's also our responsibility as tourism to ensure that the environments are clean, as we are the ones who welcome the visitors. International tourists and domestic tourism, we have to ensure that these environments are clean as we approach it with the whole of government approach strategy. We work with Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife, as well as with EMA and other stakeholders.
In a light-hearted moment, Minister Rhodzi took to the rhythm, dancing and vibing with the youth, proving that tourism is not only serious business, but a celebration of culture, unity and energy. Clean environments are not only for hygiene purposes or image, it's about real returns. Clean surroundings make for profitable tourism. This is how we ought to attract the world.
Tourists want to actually visit countries and destinations that are very smart, that are clean. And tourism generally thrives with the cleanliness. When an environment is dirty, it means that there are diseases there. It means that you get cholera recently and so on, and various other diseases.
The Sanganai Hlanganani Kumbanai Expo in Mutare is just the beginning. After the expo, all eyes turn to the University of Zimbabwe, where a tourism symposium will unpack strategies for growth. Then it's on to a vibrant sports day and a grand celebration of World Tourism Day on 27 September, hosted in the historic heart of Highfield.
This initiative is part of broader efforts not just to showcase our destinations, but the pride we take in our environment and hospitality. As the country prepares to open its arms to the world, the message is clear. Zimbabwe is ready, clean, proud, and open for tourism. Tafaras Bochiwa for ZTN Prime.
Now, devastating Veld fire swept through Chiweshe and Nyombwe Estate in Mazoi district this week, destroying homes, crops and grazing land and leaving more than 100 villagers counting their losses. The inferno, which broke out on Tuesday and Wednesday, gutted 26 huts in Chiweshe, displacing 24 families and leaving 104 people stranded. Now, at Nyombwe Estate in the Iron Duke area, the fire consumed approximately 2,000 hay bales, scorched 1,000 square meters of standing wheat, and destroyed 50 treated fence poles. Environmental Management Agency EMA Provincial Environmental Education and Publicist Officer Maxo Mopoza said more than 1,000 hectares of land was destroyed.
We can confirm a Veld fire incident in Mazoi district in the wards in Chiweshe in Ward 9, 12 and 14, where 32 households are affected, amounting to more than 100 individuals which are affected by this Veld fire. As we have doing our investigation together with the district civil protection unit, we noted that most of the families which are affected, their small huts and most properties were affected. Beehives were also affected, and the cause of the fire was from a mentally disturbed woman during this Veld fire season. What we would like to encourage members of the public, as we are now in the Veld fire season, as we have experienced in the past 2 weeks, there's been a lot of winds which have excavated most of these fires. Is we want to keep on encouraging members of the public to be on high alert.
Now, as some might have noticed, it has been quite windy lately as the seasons are truly showing their change. As we are now heading into the weekend, considering it is a Friday, we're now joined by Chief Forecaster in the Met Department, James Koma, just so that we can have an outlook of the days ahead weather-wise. James, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us right here on Newsplus. Now, what do you make of the weather of the last few days and these windy gusts? Are they going to continue?
That's a very interesting question. Looking at the season, there are some things that we know farmers are already taking part in. We know that most of the farmers are taking to the farms as they are trying to till and prepare their fields for the coming rainfall season. So in this part of the period, we do experience very windy conditions as well as the heat during the afternoon hours. So it's very advisable to always wear your sun hat if you happen to be outdoors, and also carry a water bottle and keep hydrated during the hot daytime conditions. And looking at the windy conditions that are apparent, because of this, there is an increase in Veld fires across much of the country, and this can easily get out of control. So it's always advisable not to use fire to clear the fields. And given these aspects, we're still projecting that the days ahead are going to be generally sunny and hot across much of the country. We're going to have just brief cloudy periods here and there because of moisture that is drifting in from the west into the interior of the country. These are because of the transient waves, which we call cloud bands, which emanate from Botswana into the interior of the country through Matabeleland north and south. And this give us the rains as we get into the months of October into November. But as of now, we're just expecting just brief cloudy periods as we get into the weekend. It should be generally hot and humid over much of the country, with a northeasterly airflow bringing in much of the heat from the equator into the interior of the country. So you should feel that increase in temperature, especially as you get into Saturday. But on Sunday, because of these clouds that we are expecting over much of the country, expecting it to be slightly cooler than of late, and it should get hot again as we get into Monday. So for much of this week, we're still expecting the sunny skies.
So now, James, you've already touched a bit on what the farmers should be doing, but then I feel there is still some more that they can be taking into consideration.
So for the farmer, as we look into the season ahead, this is the perfect time to be preparing your fields, cultivate as much as possible. We know that we've had good rainfall in the past season, and in the next few weeks we should be giving you the seasonal outlook, which should give you more detail as we look into the months ahead.
James, thank you so much for those updates. Very insightful. Now that was James Goma, Chief Forecaster with the Met Department. Now we take a look at some business news. Zimbabwe is pressing ahead with sweeping reforms in its mining sector, aiming to position itself as a more competitive destination for investors. With gold, lithium, platinum and diamonds driving growth, the sector already contributes the bulk of the country's export earnings. Now, government and industry leaders say that streamlining regulations and boosting efficiency could unlock billions more in revenue and cement mining as the backbone of Zimbabwe's economic recovery.
Artisanal miners like Takunda are considered a high-risk group in sub-Saharan Africa. In Zimbabwe, this group is equally vulnerable to HIV and tuberculosis. Despite behavioral change interventions, new infections remain high in this community.
The
legislator is joining this fight to end HIV and is preaching the gospel of adherence and accessing HIV services. Limited access to primary health service in this community worsens their vulnerability. The government is confident more awareness and health literacy will help reduce new infections.
Amongst the key drivers, we find to say since small-scale artisanal mining is the major socio-economic activity, we are recording quite a number of HIV new infections as well as STI new infections from the mining setups. Because where there is mining activities, there are quite a number of female sex workers, both from the district as well as from the neighboring.
Multi-sectoral interventions are critical in this fight. The Shuruge legislator believes bridging knowledge gaps and fighting stigma is of paramount importance.
As much as they want to satisfy their needs, kana kuzvifadza tikumbira kuti vanhu ngavaende kumadzimai avo kana zvarema vombosevenza vodzokera kumba, kana zvaremesa ngavawanewo zvekuvaprotecta. Kana vanhu vaona chavabata vawa kuti handisi kuwa zvakanaka, vasafungidzire vachitora miti yemigwavha nechii, ngavaende vanotarikwa.
While Zimbabwe has made remarkable progress in the HIV fight, ensuring all at-risk communities are part of this fight remains critical. The country cannot afford to ignore such vulnerable communities in its HIV fight. Reporting for ZTN Prime, I am Mirira Nsingo in Shurugwi.
Apologies for that. That's actually a health story that we had from Shurugi by Mirirai. But now on to our business news. HomeLink has officially launched its new housing development in Umguza district, a project that will see 191 fully serviced stands made available to residents. Now, the development is part of Zimbabwe's ambitious target to deliver 1 million housing units by the end of this year, highlighting the growing importance of private-public partnerships in meeting the country's housing needs.
In Umguza district, Matabeleland North, the demand for decent, affordable housing is growing rapidly. Many residents have struggled for years with limited access to fully serviced stands, a challenge that has left some communities on the outskirts of Bulawayo without basic amenities like water and sanitation. A major step has been taken to address this housing gap. HomeLink, a private developer under the Mutapa Investment Fund, has launched a new project, HomeLink Park, aimed at easing the housing shortage while demonstrating the power of private-public partnerships in Zimbabwe. The 191 fully serviced housing stands in Umguza are part of HomeLink's commitment to contribute to the national goal of 1 million housing units by the end of this year.
I am pleased to advise that we are selling HomeLink Park stands at very competitive prices. Prices of these stands have been carefully structured with affordability and accessibility in mind.
HomeLink says the demand for these stands has been overwhelming, with 100 already taken up. They believe the investment shows the vital role private-public partnerships play in addressing the housing deficit.
HomeLink Park is well aligned to the objectives of the National Development Strategy 1. We've set quite ambitious housing delivery targets, and we are grateful that through site development we are offering, in our small part, we are playing a part towards towards providing affordable and decent accommodation to the general populace of Zimbabwe.
Minister of National Housing and Social Amenities, Zemu Soda, said the project highlights how collaboration between the private sector and government can fast-track the provision of housing, ensuring citizens have access to safe and affordable homes.
Partnerships, evidencing that collaborative efforts between government and private institutions can yield remarkable results indicative of what can be achieved when we work together towards a common goal. Today's event marks the unveiling of a significant development featuring 191.
HomeLink invested $5 million United States in the land, a clear signal that private sector funding can complement government efforts in housing development. But beyond construction, the success of the project depends on essential services like water. Dr. John Manguja, CEO of Mutapa Fund, urged for closer cooperation between Bulawayo City Council and Umguza Rural District Council to extend water service to this area, saying access to water was crucial for the success of HomeLink Park and neighboring communities.
This development marks yet another significant milestone of HomeLink. It's a proud journey of developing housing in Zimbabwe. This development is a practical response to national housing backlog in Zimbabwe. And I'm pleased, Honorable Minister, that HomeLink, as part of Mutapa, is doing its contribution to this nation.
Linda Maposa, Executive Officer for Environment for Umguza RDC, said she was hopeful that the Bulawayo City Council and Umguza RDC can reach an agreement to provide water to the stands, which will not only support this housing project, but also benefit neighboring communities that currently lack access.
Umkuza Rural District Council has provided an enabling environment to the project so far. We take pride in having provided that enabling environment which has made this development possible. In this enabling environment, we will continue with the supervisory role.
For now, Homelink Park stands as a symbol of what can be achieved when private investment meets government support. But the broader success of the initiative will depend on collaboration between local authorities to ensure that residents have access to the basic services they need to turn these plots into homes. From land allocation to fully serviced housing, projects like Homelink Park are reshaping the housing landscape in Matabeleland North and could serve as a model for the rest of the country. For ZTN Prime, I'm Andile Chuma in Umkuza, Matabeleland North.
And now for some entertainment news. Now, for all the gospel lovers, Nigerian gospel singer Sinach has performed at the Today's Women Conference at the Glamis Arena, where thousands of women attended. Sinach, who is popularly known for her songs Waymaker and I Know Who I Am, is a favorite of many Zimbabweans. Now, the Love Zimbabwe Festival is set to take place from September 26 to 28 at Zimbabwe Grounds in Veld. Nigerian gospel artist Ada Ehi is joining the lineup, bringing her energetic performances all the way from Nigeria. Local ministers, including evangelist Andrew Palau, will also be sharing inspiring messages. The festival promises to be a special time of music, worship, and spiritual growth for those that are going to be in attendance. And now for some sporting action.
In a world where music transcends boundaries, where rhythm and melody unite the hearts of people, comes a show that celebrates the power of music like never before. Get ready to dive into a sonic journey that will leave you mesmerized and yearning for more. Welcome to the captivating world of Z Vibes. Vibe to it, baby.
Welcome back. You are still watching Newsplus, and now we take a look at some sporting news. Now, the Sports and Recreation Commission, SRC, has directed the Zimbabwe Rugby Union, ZRU board, to resign immediately or face suspension. In a letter to the ZRU, the SRC gave the board a deadline to resign by today, citing incessant governance issues and leadership challenges which have brought the sport of rugby into disrepute. ZRU President Loso Mtongwiza and Women's Rugby Chairperson Regina Mwanandiwa were suspended by the ZRU over allegations of misappropriation of funds. This has created a leadership vacuum, which has since led to the SRC's intervention. We spoke to Zimbabwe Sports Hub rugby analyst Rombocha Koreka and asked him how we got here.
So there are quite a number of things that actually do have to take place. Well, first and foremost, the Zimbabwe Rugby Union has to comply, or it has to release a statement itself whether they do agree with the SRC or not, because there are provisions within that particular statement released by SRC to allow Zimbabwe Rugby Union, if they're going to take that route, to not comply and then write reasons why they would not actually comply. However, for the purposes of progress, I would recommend that the Zimbabwe Rugby Union does follow what SRC has recommended. As a board, they resign. We get into fresh elections, which will have to take place after a certain amount of time has actually passed, whether it's going to be 30 days or 60 days. But we're running out of time because approximately 18 months left till Zimbabwe actually participates in the 2027 Rugby World Cup. And that is if we are to participate. So there are a number of things that have been thrown up in the air with this one, but ultimately it's two options. Either the board resigns or the board responds to the SRC as to why it would not be resigning entirely.
Now, when we did catch up with Ruimbo, he also told us about the possible implications of the ZRU not complying with the SRC's directive.
Essentially, if they don't actually resign, they put themselves in a pretty pickle, because SRC will be on their case, and it would force the hand of the SRC to then suspend the entire board, which then puts us in a position like cricket and football, where the likelihood of World Rugby and Rugby Africa suspending Zimbabwe from rugby-related activities becomes an essential part. But one of the things that I would like to let you in on is the fact that World Rugby and Rugby Africa are solidly behind trying to make sure that Zimbabwe is ready to fulfill all of the obligations that have been outlined by World Rugby in order to qualify as a Tier 2 nation that has got a semi-professional setup. And that semi-professional setup is including quite a number of positions that Zimbabwe Rugby Union has to employ. Issues around legal compliance officers, a head of marketing and public relations has to be installed with a department structure, which was clearly outlined as well by World Rugby. These are the stipulations that are required. So for Zimbabwe Rugby Union, I think with the visit that they had with World Rugby and Rugby Africa, it just means that they have to comply. It means that they have to listen to the SRC, because I'm sure the SRC has also gotten in touch with World Rugby and Rugby Africa with the decision that they've gone ahead with.
Now let's talk about some football. A very well-watched match today as Zimbabwe play Benin. Now, Zimbabwe's hopes of securing automatic qualification for the 2026 FIFA World Cup did come to an end this Friday after a 1-0 defeat to Benin in a Group C clash at the Alassane Ouattara Stadium in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. The Warriors went into the encounter needing a victory in order to keep their slim chances alive, but a second-half header from Steve Mooney condemned them to their third loss of the campaign. Now, Zimbabwe started brightly after absorbing Benin's early pressure, but within 5 minutes, Jordan Zemura picked out Tino Kadewere with a precise through ball, but the striker's effort lacked power and was easily collected. Benin then immediately responded through Rodolphe Aloko, whose dangerous cross was pushed away by Washington Narubi before the goalkeeper safely gathered the follow-up. Now, it is quite heartbreaking for all the Zimbabwean fans who were tuning in and watching this match. Still in football, Zimbabwe President Nobile Magwizi says the country is ready to host the CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations 2026 COSAFA qualifiers, which kick off in Harare and Norton next week. The championships will run from the 11th to the 20th of this month, and with 12 teams taking part. Preparations are at an advanced stage, with the local organizing committee working around the clock to host a successful tournament.
We have our local organizing committee, which is chaired by one of our executive committee members, Professor Thomas Maramanyika, who are doing a sterling job. Most of the logistical matters have been taken care of. We have 2 hotels that already have signed up in terms of accommodating our guests who are coming into the country. Hotels in Harare. We have 2 of the stadiums that have already been approved by COSAFA for use for this tournament. We have Ngoni Stadium as well as the other stadium in Waterfalls. So logistically, there's a few loose ends that we're just tying down, but I think mostly the organization is really up to speed, and we are ready to start the tournament.
Now, Ziva has been working together with the Ministry of Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture in ensuring that the young warriors produce very good results.
This is a big tournament. It's a COSAFA tournament, and we are looking at more than 11 countries coming into Zimbabwe. And it's very important that we, as a country, we obviously put our best foot forward, because it's a regional tournament. We of course have to brief the authorities, who are of course the hosts. So in our regular briefings, I think this then came up, and the minister was very interested in understanding how far we've gone with the preparations, and he was keen to see what is happening on the ground. So as you can see, the boys are here. I think the process.
That concludes our look at Newsplus this evening. That's all we had for you. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Faith Nyaude. Here's to hoping you do enjoy the rest of your weekend. We leave you with the weather forecast.
Listen, gather around. Okay, I saw Cube